everyone, it's Nina Marie. Thanks for joining me today for another video. Today I have a series of 3 cards to share with you using Simon Says Stamps July 2025 card kit. And I'm so excited to share these projects with you because I designed many of the main components in the kit and I really loved putting them together because they all work together to create a beautiful scene through a window. The July 2025 card kit is fittingly called Through the Window, and it features some beautiful pattern papers from La La Land Crafts. When I was designing the stamp set, we already knew which papers were going to be included. And as I looked at these papers, I thought to myself, I would just love to be able to look through a window and see these beautiful scenes because the papers are just gorgeous. And that's what's inspired me to create a series of window dies and then also a stamp set that allows you to create window scenes too. There's also a stencil that allows you to add beautiful landscape elements to your projects. So let me walk you through the main components real quick just to show you what you're going to get in the July 2025 card kit. So this is the Through the Window stamp set. It's a 6x8 set and it contains a nice window stamp. There are coordinating dies which cut out the window and all the interior portions so you can then layer that window over top of any of the scenes that are included in the stamp set. There are elements such as a cityscape, a little European street, countryside, beach scenes, mountains, and even some branches. In addition to the stamp set, I also designed this window trio die set. So these windows are really fun. They're different sizes and shapes, and they are perfect for using over top of any scene that you want to create. Then there's also the landscapes stencil, and this is really neat because it is a series of designs that you can slide your paper into to create different elements for your scene. So that's going to allow you to create clouds, hillsides, water, the sun, moon, clouds, and more. Now I wanted to show you these window trio dies. The windows themselves actually open, so it's really fun and interactive, and you can see how they work so well with the pattern papers. I really tried to make sure that the scale of the windows would work beautifully with the papers, but they also fill a card nicely. Speaking of the papers, they are absolutely stunning. These are, like I said, in the city papers from La La Land Crafts, and they are double-sided. You get 12 sheets in the kit, and oh my gosh, the designs are just beautiful. So many different scenes. I am loving creating with these. So this rainy cityscape really caught my eye. I love the dramatic colors in this. And I thought I would go for a modern approach for my first card. And I'm going to pull out the Squovals dies that I designed for Simon Says Stamp that are a nesting set of shape dies that you can use to create panels for your cards. So I cut that pattern paper down. And then I'm going to take the little dragonfly image from the stamp set and some sea ink from Rainbow Splash and just stamp these little dragonflies around the paper just to create a little movement. I'm going to use this Missing You greeting, so I'm bringing this in so I can kind of see where the greeting's going to fall, and that'll help me with the placement of my dragonflies. I'm making sure to stamp 3 because 3 is an odd number and it's very pleasing to the brain as you look at something where you have a visual triangle. And so we're kind of forming a very narrow triangle here, but it's allowing you to have that odd number so your brain isn't trying to count the images. I'm going to splatter this paper with a bit of watered down acrylic white paint just so I can get some really cool texture. And now I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So I'm going to stamp this onto some black cardstock that I pulled out of my stash, and I'm going to prep the paper with a powder tool prior to stamping. I'm going to emboss this Missing You greeting onto the paper, so I'm stamping with Simon Says Stamp embossing ink, and this is going to allow me to then sprinkle the white embossing powder over top. That powder tool gave me a really nice coverage on the paper so that the powder only sticks to the stamped image. And then I used my heat tool to set this. I always heat from the back side of the paper first before bringing it to the front. There are coordinating dies for the stamp set in the card kit, which you do have to purchase separately, but that allows you to cut out the sentiments as well as the window. Now on the back side of my Squovals panel, I'm going to put some foam tape so that I can pop this up on top of a blue card base that I made. I really loved that dark blue color, so I found some blue paper that I had in my collection that I thought would match nicely with that, and this is an A2 size card. By the way, there's some brand new glue from Simon Says Stamp called Positively Perfect Craft Glue. It is a fine liquid adhesive that has a very thin consistency, but it holds really well and it does dry matte. So it's a great finish for your projects. And I'm using the little gold stars from the card kit to add those little embellishments around my seam. So that sparkle adds just a nice finishing touch to this card. It's clean, simple, but modern, and I love the dramatic feel. That Squoval design really enhances the modern feel of this project, and I'm really excited with how this first card turned out. Now let's step it up and bring in one of those window dies. So I've already picked one here, and I'm going to definitely use this middle portion of the pattern paper because I love the cherry blossom, but I want to stamp onto this paper to create my own custom scene with the stamp set. So just so I know how much space I have to work with, I'm going to trace around this window die just to get a vague idea of the sizing that I've got to work with. Plus that'll allow me to trim this down a little bit so it's about the same size as the window. I'm going to use the cityscape for my stamping, but I'm going to bring in my Tim Holtz scissors and roughly cut out that area that I traced with my pencil. Tracing the die allows me to get just a slightly larger sheet of paper than the window is going to end up turning out, which will allow me to make sure that I've got plenty of space to work with, and then I can just trim down any excess once I'm completed all of my scene building. So I'm going to take this paper and put it inside of my mini MISTI tool. I'm lining up the window die as I'm arranging my stamp just so that way I can see where exactly that stamped image is going to fall within the window. And once I'm happy with it, then I can start stamping. I'm using VersaFine Clair ink from Simon Says Stamp. This is the Nocturne color. And that's going to allow me to stamp this really nice crisp black image on my pattern paper. I do want to fill the scene, so I'm just going to reposition the stamp and stamp it onto the other end of my paper just to go ahead and fill the entire space. This will meld nicely with the first stamping and look continuous. So now that I have my cityscape stamped, now we can start ink blending a bit of water. And I wanted this to kind of look like a New York City skyline. So I'm going to add the water in front of the city. I'm picking out ocean for the ink that I'm going to use to ink blend my water areas. And I've slid my paper into the stencil and I'm going to ink blend along the edge of that water area. And I'm not going too far down into the paper because I'm going to add multiple ink blended water areas just to give a little bit of movement. So once I have the first border of water colored, then I'm going to slide that paper back into the stencil, but a little bit lower this time, and I'm going to ink blend another area of water. That looks good, so we're gonna go ahead and do that one more time, but we'll slide it a little bit further down along the paper, and then I'll finish off with that last bit of water. So now I've got this great little area of water going along the bottom of my card. And then I'm going to use the cloud portion of the stencil to add some puffy white clouds in my sky. This is a white paste from the Crafter's Workshop. It's called Light and Fluffy, which I think is perfect for clouds. So it just added that nice, perfect bit of texture to the sky. It's subtle, but it really adds a nice finishing touch. And then I'll just go ahead and apply 3 areas of those clouds onto the paper. Now for my last area, I was being impatient trying to do all 3 at once. And so I did kind of mess up the cloud below, but I'm just gonna go back in and fill it in with my little palette knife here and some of the extra paste that I had on my palette knife, and you could never tell. So only you and I who are looking at it right now know that I made that mistake. Paste is pretty forgiving, especially when you're doing clouds. Now I'm bringing in that window die that I planned on using, but I'm going to cut it from a few sheets of cardstock. I'm using black, but also teal and yellow. I wasn't sure which color I wanted for this card, and in the end, I did go with black, but it allowed me to play around with the colors and decide which one I liked best. And I'll just save the other windows for another project. Now the windows, like I said, they can open, so I'm just kind of prepping that a little bit and just folding them back just to give them a little bit of lift so that they have that open look. On the back side of my windows, I'm going to use some foam strips which are included in the card kit, and I'm going around all the edges of the window to go ahead and fill in that space so it will stand up really nicely on my card project. These foam strips are really nice and thin. They fit behind the window perfectly, and then I can lay my window on top of my background. Now, I've got this a little bit larger, like I said earlier, than the actual window, but that's okay. It's allowing me to give myself some room to decide exactly where I want this to fall. And then any excess that's hanging off the sides, I just use my scissors to trim up. So here we go. We have our cute little scene ready to go. All we need to do now is put it on a card. So I'm going to take some of the yellow cardstock that's included in the kit, and I'm going to cut it with a postage stamp die that I have from Pink Fresh Studios. And that's going to give me a nice little panel that I can emboss with an embossing folder. This embossing folder is an oldie but goodie from Simon Says Stamp that is one of my absolute favorites. It's called Floating Flowers, and it's such a fun little floral background, which I thought would pair nicely with the flower that is in my scene here. So this little cherry blossom branch I thought was really pretty, and I pulled out the yellow that's in the center of those flowers. That's why I chose that for the background color of my card. So I'm going to tie a bit of pink ribbon around this as well. So I'm going to hold down the ribbon by laying some foam tape on the back side of my window piece and then sandwiching that ribbon between the window panel and also this postage piece. This pink ribbon will eventually get tied around the front of the card into a cute little bow, but that foam tape is going to hold it in place. I'm picking out this Thinking of You sentiment from the Through the Window stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it onto the teal cardstock that's included in the card kit. I'm using embossing ink for this as well, so I did prep the surface with my powder tool prior to stamping, and then I'm going to emboss this with white embossing powder. Then I'll use my heat tool to set it, and I will cut this out so that way I can pop it up directly on top of my card. Here you can see I tied that cute little bow around the card, and then that sentiment will fit perfectly underneath the window. To adhere it, I did use some foam tape, and then that's going to complete this darling card. So between the pattern paper and the stamps and coordinating stencil, I was able to create this customized, beautiful cityscape that is absolutely charming, fresh, and perfect for the spring and summer season. So the last project that I wanted to share is also going to use the window dies and the pattern paper, but this time I'm going to make a shaker card because these windows are perfect for creating shakers. So I'm going to use some yellow cardstock to cut out this small window, which is darling. It's a nice little square size, and I'm going to adhere it to a piece of this clear acetate that you get in the card kit. You get a piece of Simon Says Stamp lightweight acetate. I'm going to adhere my window onto the acetate using some Simon Says Stamp craft tacky glue, because it is designed to work with non-paper items, and acetate can be a bit fussy sometimes, and I always like to play the safe side and use a more stronger adhesive for anything that I'm adhering to acetate. So I'm going to use that over the Positively Perfect craft glue. But once I adhere that window onto the acetate, that'll allow me to go ahead and trim off any excess, and now I have a clear window that will be the perfect front for my shaker. My shaker is going to go on top of one of the pattern paper sheets, and I was trying to decide which part of my scenes on the paper that I liked best, and eventually I ended up falling on this collection of smaller prints which had a sun in it, but I thought it could also be a moon too. So I decided to turn this into a nighttime, almost like a twilight scene, which I thought would be really pretty. So I'm going to build a shaker that can house those cute little star sequins that are included in the kit. I'm going to build my shaker well out of some of the foam strips that are included in the kit, and then these flat little stars are going to fit perfectly inside. So I'm going to sprinkle a few of them onto the pattern paper, so that way that'll be my shaker filler. I'm just deciding how much I need, so I'll add a few more. Then I can remove the release paper from the back side of my little window and then place that over top, sandwiching those cute little stars between the paper and the window. And now that's going to give me this darling little scene filled with star sequins that is going to be perfect for my twilight card. So I'll trim off any excess here with my scissors just to clean up the shape, and then check it out. How cute is this? I'm going to frame this with a piece of the pattern paper that's in the kit, and I loved this scene here, which kind of felt like a twilight colored sky, but I'm going to enhance it with a bit of ink blending. I cut it with that same postage die just to give it a fun edge, and then I brought in dusk ink from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to add that to the bottom right and top left corners of the card, just to make this feel a little bit more shadowy and perfect for the dusk color. And then the scene's going to sit on top. I just love it. It's a perfect combination here. So I have the blue ink, and then I did end up, as I put this card together, deciding to add a little bit of pink. And I'll show you how I managed to add that after adhering this panel onto my A2 card. I never give up. Once I make a mistake on a project, I'm just like, you know what, we're gonna go with it as is, and what comes out of it, that's the way it's gonna be. Now I did add a bit of that splattering with the acrylic paint onto my project too, just for some texture. It kind of creates the illusion of some stars coming out. And then I put this onto an A2 white card base. This is a top folding card base from Simon Says Stamp, and I popped that up with foam tape. It's at this point that I realized I wanted some pink in here because my scene behind the window has pink in it. And I thought to myself, I would love to have some pink in the sky for this card. So even though it's attached to my card base, I'm going to carefully come in with a small blending brush and some ballet ink from Rainbow Splash and apply this to different sections of my pattern paper. Very light, just a touch, but it's the perfect amount of blush to add to the scene, and it really brings in that twilight color. I love it. So I'm glad I went ahead and tried to put that pink color in here because it's perfect. Now with some of that Positively Perfect craft glue, I just adhered my little scene onto the card base, and then I did stamp a sentiment from the stamp set onto some blue cardstock. This is soft navy from Simon Says Stamp, and pop that up with some foam tape. That's embossed with white, so it looks really cute. And I used the same process for the greetings that I created for my other cards. To continue on that star theme and really bring out the twilight stars in my sky, I decided to use a bit more of those little gold sequins that are included in the kit. These cute little stars are darling. I adhered those with that Positively Perfect craft glue. The pink color I wanted to bring in a tad more, so I brought in a scrap of paper that I had from my previous card, and I'm going to die cut this pink portion with a little heart die. This is a Simon Says Stamp nested heart, and I just popped that up underneath the Wish You Were Here greeting. It's small and fits perfectly down there, and I thought it would go really well and tie in those pink colors nicely. It really brings out the heartfelt wishes for your card that you're giving to somebody. So I'm really happy with how this shaker turned out. It's so cute. I love the sparkly stars, and I'm so glad I tried to throw in that pink for the background because it really made the difference on the project. Well, friends, there are quite a bit of ideas that I've shared today in this video. I hope that you were inspired and that you'll try them out for yourself. Even if you don't have the card kit that I'm using today, you could also try out some of these ideas with other products you already have. But if you do want to get the card kit from Simon Says Stamp, this is the Through the Window card kit. You can find links to it down in the video description as well as on my blog. I hope you have fun creating with this kit because not only did I have fun creating all the products, but I'm so excited that I got to then also share my ideas with you on how you can use them. So thanks so much for watching today's video. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I'm so grateful to all of you for watching my videos and sticking around with me. It's truly a pleasure to be able to share creative content with you all. So until next time, friends, I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay crafty, and I will be seeing you again very soon.